It usually happens late at night. You start counting the years you have already used up, the things that were supposed to happen by now. And then a quiet thought shows up. The best part is over. You already spent it. And you were not even looking while it went by. But there is something odd about that thought. You can still see those old years clearly. A room, a summer, a song, a face. Now try to find last year. It's gone. A whole year of your life and there is almost nothing there. Why? That blank spot is the part worth worrying about. Because it is not finished. It is happening right now. To this year while you sit here. Your memory is quietly deciding what to keep. Most of what you did last month did not make the cut. Most of what you do this month will not either. And in 10 years, when you go looking for this part of your life, you may find that almost none of it was saved. That's the real thing at stake here. Not whether your best years are behind you, whether the years you have left are going to be there at all when you go back for them. So, here's what we know. When you ask people to name the moments they remember best, almost all of them land in the same small window, roughly age 15 to 30. It shows up in study after study, in country after country, in people whose lives had nothing in common. Which sounds like the sad answer. Science saying yes, those were your best years and they are behind you. But that is not what it means. Those years stick for a reason, and the reason has almost nothing to do with being young. So the question is simple. What were those years doing that this year is not? Here's the answer, and it is smaller than you think. Those years were full of first-timers. The first time you left home, the first time you kissed someone, the first time you had your own money, your own key, your own room in a city nobody chose for you. The first job, the first real fight, the first person who left. Your memory is not a camera, it does not record everything, it is more like a person with a very small notebook standing at the edge of your life, only writing down the things that are new, because that is what memory is for. It is not there to keep a diary, it is there to help you guess what happens next, and you only learn something from a moment that surprised you. A moment that goes exactly the way you expected teaches you nothing, so nothing gets written down. Now think about what a normal week looks like now. The same route, the same rooms, the same food, the same faces, and the same decisions. Almost nothing surprises you, so the notebook stays closed. Scientists have a name for that thick cluster of memories from your teens and 20s. They call it the reminiscence bump. It is one of the most reliable findings in the study of memory. But there's a problem with the first time's explanation, because the bump shows up even in people whose youth was hard or boring or spent one in small town. It shows up in people who had almost no adventures at all. So something else is going on in those years too. The second reason is stranger. Those are the years you are building the person you would become. Somewhere in that window you stopped being someone's child and started being someone. You picked up what you liked. You picked up who you wanted near you. You picked what kind of person you were going to try to be. And your memory holds on much harder to anything that helped answer the question, who am I? There's a third piece too. In most places in the world, the big expected events of a life are stacked into the same stretch. Finishing school, leaving home, first job, falling in love, getting married, having a child. We even know roughly what order they are supposed to come in. Psychologists call that the life script. It is the story a culture hands you about how life is supposed to go. And almost every chapter of that script is scheduled before you turn 30. So it is not that you were young, it is that you were new, you were becoming someone, and life kept handing you things that mattered. Which raises the obvious question, is that window locked? Does everyone's bump sit in the same place no matter what they do with their life? Because if it's locked, then the sad answer was right after all. Well, it's not locked. Look at people who move to another country in the middle of their lives. Not for a holiday, for good. New language, new city, new work, new everything. When researchers ask those people to name their clearest memories, something unusual happens. The old cluster from their teens and 20s is still there. But there's a second cluster, around the move. Their memory built a second bump in their 30s, their 40s, even later. Because their brain was handed the same conditions again. Everything new, everything uncertain, nothing predictable, and the notebook came back out. So, the bump does not follow your age, it follows change. Sit with that for a second because it flips the whole thing over. The reason your teens and 20s glow is not that they were your best years, it is that they were your newest years. And new is a thing that can happen again at any age to anyone. Which means the blur is not a punishment for getting older. It is a description of how you are currently living. But that leaves a gap, because if this year is being saved so thinly, then why does it also feel like it's going so fast? Why does a week now disappear quicker than a week at 17? There's a reason, and it is the strangest part of this whole thing. You have two clocks. One of them is the clock you feel while something is happening. The other is the clock you use when you look back. They almost never agree. The psychologist Claudia Hammond calls this the holiday paradox. Think about a week somewhere you had never been. While it was happening, it flew by. Then you got home and looked back, and that week felt enormous. Longer than the 2 months before it. Now think about a normal week at work. While it is happening, it drags. Every afternoon takes forever. Then it ends and you look back and there is nothing there. The whole thing collapses into a single grey shape. This is the trade you are making every week without knowing it. A life that is easy to get through is a life that shrinks when you look back at it. A life with new things in it feels fast while you live it and huge afterwards. And here's the part that stings. Almost everybody builds their life around the first clock. We try to make the days smooth, comfortable, easy to get through. We are optimizing the wrong clock. We are buying easy afternoons with whole years. So the fix seems obvious. Do more new things. Except that people try exactly that all the time. They quit, they move, they book the trip, and a year later they are right back where they started, saying the same thing at the same hour of the night. Why doesn't it work? Because we are not doing this by accident, we are built for it. Your brain is expensive to run, so it saves energy the same way you do. It learns a pattern and then it stops paying full attention. The first time you drove a car, every second was loud. Mirrors, pedals, other cars, your own hands. Now you can drive across the city and arrive with no memory of the trip at all. You were there, nobody was writing anything down. That is not a flaw, that is your brain finishing a job. Once something is predictable, it can be handled quietly in the background. And we like it that way. We choose it. We find the good route and keep it. We find the food we like and order it again. We find the people we are comfortable with and stop meeting new ones. Every one of those choices is small and reasonable, and together they build a life that runs beautifully and saves almost nothing. That is the trap. Comfort is not the enemy of a good life, it is the enemy of a remembered one. But that still does not explain why the big fixes fail. The trip, the move, the new job. Those are not comfortable, those are all new. So why do people come back from them and feel exactly the same? Two reasons, and both of them are useful. The first one is that new things stop being new, fast. The exciting job becomes the job in about 4 months. The new city becomes the city. Whatever you change into becomes the next thing you stop noticing. So a single big change does not fix anything. It just moves the pattern. The second reason is the one that actually helps you. We think this takes something big, something expensive, a flight, a resignation, a whole new life. So we wait until we can afford the bigger version. And while we wait, the years keep going into the grey. But the notebook does not care how big the new thing is. It cares that it is new. Walk home a different way and your brain has to switch back on. It's something you have never had. Say yes to the thing you would normally skip. Go somewhere in your own city where you have never been. Meet one stranger a month. Learn a thing badly in public where you might look silly. None of that costs much, but it makes a mark. Here's the practical version. One new thing a week. Small is fine. Do it on purpose and put it somewhere you can see it. Try to do that for a year and the year cannot go grey. There is too much in it. But there's a second half to this, and skipping it is why people still lose years they lived well. Because saving a memory and finding it later are two different jobs. A memory you cannot reach is the same as a memory you never made. Your old years are easy to reach because you have told those stories 100 times. Every time you tell one, you make the path to it a little wider. Last year has no path. Nobody ever asked you about it, so you never went back. So here's the second habit, and it is even smaller than the first. Write 3 lines at the end of the day. Not a diary, 3 lines. What happened, who was there, what it felt like. That is enough to build a door back into that day. And take a photo of something ordinary. Not the sunset, the kitchen, the desk. The person from across you doing nothing. Ordinary is what disappears, so ordinary is what you should be saving. One warning though, there's research from Linda Henkel at Fairfield University showing that people who photograph everything in a museum remember the objects worse than the people who just looked at them. When you hand the job to the camera, your own memory quietly puts down the pen. So the rule is one photo, then look, not 40 photos and no looking. Do those two things and your year stops vanishing. But we should be honest about something here because it is the real question under all of this. Is a remembered life actually a better life? Or are we just building a nicer scrapbook for a person who is still unhappy at 1 in the morning? To answer that, look at a mistake almost everyone makes. A team of psychologists led by Daniel Gilbert at Harvard asked thousands of people two questions. How much have you changed in the last 10 years and how much do you expect to change in the next 10? Everyone said the same thing. I have changed enormously and I'm basically finished now. 20-year-olds said it, 40-year-olds, 60-year-olds said it. Every single age group believed that they had just arrived at the final version of themselves. They were all wrong. The older people in the study were living proof that the younger ones were wrong, and they were making the identical mistake about their own future. Gilbert and his team called it the end of history illusion. Now look back at that thought you had late at night. The best part is over. That is the same illusion wearing different clothes. You're not looking at evidence, you're looking at a future you have quietly assumed will be a flat continuation of right now. Same job, same rooms, same people, forever. You have made a prediction and mistaken it for a memory, and that is why the feeling shows up at every age. A person at 25 feels it, a person at 60 feels it. Both of them are standing in what will later look like the interesting part. So if the feeling is unreliable, what do people say when they have actually reached the end and look back for real? Because that turns out to be the most useful information in this entire subject. Lots of psychologists spent years studying regret. They found something clean. In the short term, people regret the things they did, the stupid things they said, the money they lost, the night they should have gone home earlier. But those regrets fade. You explain them to yourself. You make them into a funny story. Time sends them down. The regrets that do not fade are the other kind. The things people did not do, the person they never spoke to, the thing they never tried, the move they kept postponing, the version of their life they could see clearly and never walked toward it. Those get heavier because the thing you did has an ending, and a thing you never did stays open forever. There's no fact to check it against, just an empty space that keeps growing. And notice what those two lists actually are. The things you did are the things your memory saved. The things you did not do are the blur. It is the same story told twice. The unlived parts and the unremembered parts are the same parts. Which brings us back where we started, to 1 in the morning and the counting and the quiet thought, because that thought is not entirely wrong, it's just pointed in the wrong direction. You were not wasting your best years, you were failing to save them, and you are still doing it right now, and that part is fixable. The blur is not a verdict on your life, it's a receipt. It tells you exactly how much of the past year you spent on autopilot and doing nothing more than that. So here's the whole thing, as small as it goes. Your memory keeps what is new, your comfort removes what is new, so new has to be chosen on purpose now because nobody's going to hand it to you the way they did at 19. One new thing a week, 3 lines at night, one ordinary photo. That is the entire method, and none of it requires a different life than the one you have. And when the counting starts again some night, remember what you are actually counting, not the years you have left, the years you will be able to find. You already know what the last one looked like, the next one has not been written.